You were saying something with Hassan, and you said in order for God to be God, he has to be like three. So I don't know if you have any evidence from the Bible which says God cannot be all powerful if he's not in three persons.
It's a philosophical argument, right? The idea that God is the superlative of whatever we are, right? So people can be good, they can treat their kids nicely, but God is the supreme expression of what goodness is. He's the extreme and perfection, the ultimate of goodness. So you think of justice and right. I mean, these things, all God is completely, right? He's the most benevolent. I mean, all these attributes are his, they belong to him. But when you talk about loving, without a God being complex in his unity, with having one to love, he lacks the superlative of the attribute of love. And since the Bible says God is love, he has to be the perfection of love. Love that's not directed towards a person and received back from a person is an imperfect love. I'm sure you don't want to be married to a woman who doesn't love you back, right?
Right.
Right? So that love would be lacking and incomplete, right? Yep. Let's say you married a woman and you don't love her no more, right? That love is lacking. There's something broken in there. So what we're saying is that in the Godhead, from all eternity, from the beginning, there were three persons that loved each other perfectly. The Father loved the Son loved the Spirit, the Son and the Spirit loved the Father and the Son loved the Spirit, and every combination that you could imagine, that they had love for one another and communal love, right? 2 to 1, and they loved as a group and they showed love on another. So this is why without creation being in existence, you need an uncreated complexity of the unity of God for the superlative of love to be in existence and to be part of God's attributes. If not, the alternative is God never had perfect love until he created us, and this will make Allah dependent on us since he's only one person.
Okay, so God existed, he always existed as three. That's what you say, right?
No, do you have it? But what's wrong with what I just said though?
No, I don't have, no. I'm just trying to.
So you think a person so God does have to be complex to have perfect love. He does have to be multi-personal.
No, God doesn't have to be multi-personal or something like that.
So what's wrong with the argument I just gave you though? Because you said you had no problem with what I said. I articulated that God had to be complex for perfect love, but now you're saying God doesn't have to be complex for perfect love. So what's wrong with what I said? What's the flaw in my argumentation?
What's wrong with it is when you said he already existed in three.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what's wrong.
Okay, so before creation, if God, Allah, one person, who does he love?
He loves his creation.
No, before creation, who does Allah love?
Creation, he had love, but he didn't share the love.
So is that love? So if your wife has love but don't love you, is that love?
Yeah, you can have love, but hold on. The thing is, we are those seeing him as love, right?
Yeah.
As loving, right?
Yeah.
So without us, we don't see him as loving, but he's love. It can happen like that.
This is the problem. This is what I think you're missing. Love is not just, it's loving people and receiving that love back. That's perfect love, right? Right? That's perfect love.
Yeah.
Loving and being loved back, right?
Yeah.
Right? So what I'm saying is, before creation came into existence, there was no one for Allah to love. Therefore, he has a greater expression and display of love with creation, meaning he's dependent on creation to represent love perfectly because he's not loving and loving back, versus the triune God that always had other persons to love and be loved by from time immemorial because they were all uncreated.
But you do know that God cannot just start loving without already having the ability.
Who did Allah love before creation?
But he had the ability to love.
Who did Allah love before creation?
He loved himself.
Really quick.
Oh, see.
Good. Very good. Good right there. Put a pause right here. I just want to share this. Guys, if you guys want to see this argument like really laid out beautifully, this right here, this brother, Joshua Sijuwadi, he is a beast when it comes to this argument and laying this out. And so he has an entire like Yeah, it's like an article where he breaks down this entire argument, and you guys can learn it. And you guys, he goes in depth in it. Okay, love and the necessity of the Trinity. And I'm not going to say that word, but boom, there it is. All right, love and the necessity of the Trinity. So now going back to the brother's argument, he said that Allah was only loving himself. Radar.
Yeah, that's faulty love, right? If you're married, I don't know, are you married?
Yeah.
Are you married? All right. So you got any kids?
No.
Okay, so you allowed to go home and just love yourself? Would your wife say that you're exercising love perfectly if you just loving you?
But I'm not God. I need God. I need God to instill that in me, so I can love.
I get that. Okay,
yeah, God
I get
is
that.
the creator, and nobody created him, so he had the love in him already. Like
yeah, but who's he loving though?
Who is he loving? He doesn't depend on us. We depend on him.
No, we're not saying so. You got to think about love for God is not just an emotion. It's part of who he is. It's part of his makeup. It's an attribute of God. It's not something he picks up or puts down at every point. This is like omniscience, knowing all, omnipresence, omnipotent, knowing all, able to do all, right? These are attributes of God that don't change, right? He always has, and love is one of those things, right? But never all these things, right? So the idea of God love, the Bible says God is love. A love that is not directed towards a person is not a love that is complete. The problem, I think what you're missing is you're thinking about it from creation. If creation does not exist, there's no person for Allah to love, so his attribute is lacking.
I think it will be lacking to his creation, not himself.
There's no creation at the time.
No. So before God created humans, was he all powerful? What do you think?
I think he was all powerful.
Did he know everything?
I think he knew all, of course.
Yes. So, but how did we know that God? He has to create us for us to know his attribute, right?
But it's not based upon us knowing it. It's things that already exist within him.
Yeah.
So I mean,
right, Avery? I mean, I think it's a mistake. It's a mistake of category that I think you're making.
No,
it is a mistaken category because look at the category of attributes that you're talking about. Well, knowledge itself is not like an action, Love is. Love by definition is an action. It's an act of service or, it's what you do for someone, So love and knowledge are categorically two different. They have two different natures, right? They're two different things. So when talking about love, we're talking about something that requires an action, requires behavior,
Yeah, but the thing is, we can say he had the ability to love, but he didn't share it because he didn't have the creation to share it with, right?
Boom. So he doesn't have.
He needs creation.
Exactly. He
needs the creation to share the love with, right?
Yeah.
But he had the love. He had the ability.
Well, therefore he's dependent. If he needs creation in order to exhibit shared love, then he is dependent on creation and therefore is not God.
Yeah, because creator's not an attribute, right? Creator's not an attribute. It's a different category, right? Love is what God is, the Bible says. You know what I mean? So there's a difference in category I think you're missing.
So you were thinking there. I saw you was like you was thinking a little bit. I don't know. If it's, do you see how God, according to that view, Allah is dependent on creation in some way. And if he's dependent,
so let me say from the Quran, it says when God created everything, then he established himself on the throne. Right? What throne exactly? Because he didn't have his creation, but he created the throne, right?
Okay.
Yeah, but the throne's not an attribute though.
Himself on the throne.
Yeah, but the throne's not an attribute.
If you have a throne, it means you are a king to something, right?
Oh yeah, sure. Of what?
yeah. So, but he didn't have the creation before, but he was still a king. To what exactly? Yeah. So it means God is always a king, whether he had his creation or not. He is always a king. That is why we said he have love. He's something who is loving, but when he gets his creation, then he starts sharing it with him. It doesn't mean he's not a human to have another partner or something to depend on to share his love. I understand that he would need his creation to give love, but he's always having it, the ability to.
Continue with that with him, Radar. I'm about to change positions. I need better lighting.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, I think you're mistaking a category error between that which is created and the attribute of God, right? Because the idea of God being a king is something that is necessary for creation, for him to be a king. But we don't say God as to his essence and nature is a king. There's a difference to that, right? There's a difference of that. Because let me ask you a question. So when you think about Allah before creation, right? And there's no one for him to love, don't you think there's a brokenness there that love's not being expressed?
Yeah, but he yeah, all right, you go ahead.
Yeah.